Today we're going to continue looking at multiplying fractions, and these examples are ones that include the need to simplify. So let's look at some examples first. So previously when we've looked at multiplying fractions, for instance 1 over 4 times 3 over 5, we've had two steps. We've said to multiply the numerators together, which is the top numbers, and then multiply the denominators together. So if I was to do that, I would do 1 times 3 is 3, and then 4 times 5 is 20. And that was your final answer. Today we're going to take it a little step further with the need to simplify. So for instance, this example, the steps that we're going to take to work out 1 over 3 times 3 over 4, we are first going to do what I call simplify the diagonals. Okay. So we're going to look at our question here, and we're going to look at our diagonals. And by diagonals, I mean diagonally opposite from each other. So 1 and 4 are diagonally opposite from each other. And then we have 3 and 3. They're diagonally opposite one another. And we're going to think about simplifying that. So we need to think about 1 and 4. Is there a times table that 1 and 4 are both in, or can we divide 1 and 4 by the same number? Which we cannot. So then we're going to look at 3 and 3. Is there a number that we can divide both 3 and 3 by? And we can in fact divide that by 3. So if we divide 3 by 3, we're going to change that to a 1. And if we divide this 3 by 3, we also change that to a 1. And now we can go ahead and on to our second step, which is to multiply our numerators together. And this is including the new numerator that you've created with this 1. So 1 times 1 is 1. And then multiply the denominators together. This new denominator that you've created, 1 times 4 is 4. We do have a final step, which is to fully simplify your answer if needed. However, 1/4, we don't need to simplify that any further. And that is your final answer. Can you please make sure you're copying these examples down as we go, including if you've got a highlighter to highlight your diagonals, that is really useful. And make sure you're copying every step down as well. Okay, on to a second example. First step, we are going to simplify our diagonals. Okay, so look at our diagonals. We've got 3 and 6 on our first diagonal. Can we simplify that at all? Well, we can divide them both by 3. So if we divide the first one by 3, we're going to change that to 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. And then 6 divided by 3 is 2. So we've changed that 3 to a 1, and we've changed that 6 to a 2. And then we check our second diagonal, 5 and 1. We can't actually simplify that any further, so we're just going to leave it as it is. And now we can move on to our second step, which is to multiply our numerators together. So we've changed that 3 to become a 1. So 1 times 1 is 1. And then 5 times 2, onto our third step, 5 times 2 is 10. The last step is to make sure, can we simplify it? Which we cannot, so that is our final answer. Okay, third example. Let's look at all the steps first. So we're going to simplify the diagonals. We're then going to multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then fully simplify if needed. So checking our diagonals here, we've got 2 and 8. Well, we can divide both of them by 2. So we change that to 2 divided by 2 is 1, 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then our other diagonals, 9 and 5, we can't actually divide both of them by the same number, so we just leave it as it is. And then we can move on to step 2, which is multiplying our numerators together. 1 times 5 is 5, then 9 times 4 is 36, and that is your final answer. Again, make sure you're copying all these down, please. And on to example 4. Again, look at our steps. Simplify the diagonals. multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then simplify your answer if needed. So now let's look at the first example. We've got 5 and 10. We can divide both of them by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Let's check our second example. Well, we can actually simplify these as well by dividing them both by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So on to the second step, multiplying our numerators together. We've actually changed both of these numerators just to be 1. So we can do 1 times 1 is 1, then 3 times 2 is 6. And that's your final answer there. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to pause in a little second to try these 3 questions. Your steps, remember, simplify your diagonals, multiply the numerators together, multiply the denominators, and then make sure your answer is fully simplified. So if you pause here and give these a go. Okay, hopefully you've tried them. Let's go over the answers. So checking our diagonals, we've got 1 and 7. We can't simplify them, so we're just going to leave it as it is. Then we've got 6 and 2. We can divide both of them by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now we can go ahead and multiply our numerators, which is 1 times 3 to give you 3, and 1 times 7 to give you 7. And that is the final answer there. So well done if you got that one. Question B. First diagonal, 2 and 6. They're both even numbers, so we can divide them by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 1 times 1 gives you 1. 3 times 3 gives you 9. And that's your final answer there. And then question C. Check our first diagonal, 6 and 12, both in the 6 times table. So we're going to multiply that by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 12 divided by 6 is 2. Then our second diagonal, we've got 7 and 7. We can divide them both by 7 to get 1 and 1. And let's multiply our numerators. 1 times 1 gives you 1. And 1 times 2 gives you 2. So please make sure you mark your answers, and really well done if you got all 3 of them correct. Okay. Alright, so far we have simplified our diagonals. We know how to multiply our numerators together. We know how to multiply our denominators together, but we've not yet come across an example where we are required to simplify our final answer. So let's see what those ones will look like. Okay, first steps are going to be the same. Let's look at our diagonals. We've got 5 and 10. Okay, we can divide them both by 5 because they're both in the 5 times table. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Let's double check our other diagonal. Well, 4 and 7, there's not times table, they're both in, so we're just going to leave it as it is. Let's go on to step 2 to multiply our numerators. So this 1 is the numerator here. 1 times 4 gives you 4. And 7 times 2 gives you 14. And we're going to look at our last step, which is to make sure your answer is fully simplified. Okay, 4 and 14, they're both even numbers, which means we can always divide them by 2. So we are going to simplify this, and so we're going to divide the top by 2. So like, what times table are both of these in? They're both in the 2 times table, so we can divide them both by 2. So you're using your skills of simplifying fractions for this. And then, so 4 divided by 2 will give you 2, and then 14 divided by 2 will give you 7. So make sure your answers are fully simplified. Okay, again, please copy all these examples down, including all of the steps. Okay, so example 6. Again, simplify your diagonals first, then we're going to multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then we're going to simplify if needed. So checking our diagonals, we've got 4 and 8. They are both in the 4 times table, so we can divide them by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Check. 9 and 4, we can't simplify them, so we're just going to leave them as it is. Let's go ahead on to step 2, multiply our numerators. 1 times 4 is 4. 9 times 2 is 18. So then we do need to simplify because 4 and 18 are both in the 2 times table, so we're going to divide them both by 2. So divide it by 2, divide it by 2. Whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom of your fraction as well. Okay, so 4 divided by 2 will give you 2. 18 divided by 2 will give you 9. And that is your final answer there. If you need to go back and pause the video to copy any of this down, that's absolutely fine. And now we're going to move on to 2 examples for you to try yourself. So steps: simplify the diagonals, multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then simplify your answer. So if you pause here and give these one a try. Okay, let's go over the answers for these ones. Hopefully you've unpaused now. First diagonal, 6 and 12. Well, they're both in the 6 times table, so we can divide them by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 12 divided by 6 is 2. Check your second diagonal, 8 and 9. Well, we can't simplify them at all, so let's just go ahead and multiply our numerators. 1 times 8 gives you 8. 9 times 2 gives you 18. They are both even numbers, both in the 2 times table, so we're going to divide them by 2. 8 divided by 2, 18 divided by 2. So 8 divided by 2 gives you 4. 18 divided by 2 gives you 9. So well done if you got that. Second question. First diagonal, 5 and 10. We can divide them both by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Check your second diagonal. Well, we can't simplify that at all, so let's just go ahead and answer it. 1 times 8 is 8. 9 times 2 is 18. Turned out the same as the first question, but let's just make sure we're doing it right. Dividing the top by 2, dividing the bottom by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 18 divided by 2 is 9. So if you mark your work, and well done if you got both of them right.